When it comes to supporting healthy hormone balance, a lot of people assume I'm against supplementation of all kinds and hormone replacement of all kinds. The truth is that there are lots of things that need to be discussed in this conversation, and there's a lot of nuance in the entire discussion. So today I have on Kourtney from Kale Diagnostics to go deeper into this topic. I'm not somebody who loves people to go out and get a bunch of testing done. I really want you working on the foundations of light, of nutrition, of stress management, nervous system, which we're going to talk about today in this episode. But if you have done that and you've done that for a period of 90 days or 6 months or so, I think it's important to test, to actually see what is going on in your body, because the trap a lot of people fall into when it comes to supporting hormone balance and supporting the body is that they just guess. They just throw things in and end up creating a firestorm, so to speak. So that is why, again, I have Kourtney from Kale Diagnostics to talk about this topic with a little bit more nuance, what she sees in practice and what I see as well, and how we can help support the whole person, not just look at this biochemical reaction and start to, piecemeal things together. So I hope that you find this conversation informative and also helpful. I also have a link down in the show notes if you want to work with Kourtney or one of her team members to do a little bit more digging. Again, I'm not somebody who wants you right off the bat to go into that sort of thing. But if you do have all the foundations down and you know that in your heart, this would be a good avenue to explore. So I hope you enjoy today's episode and the conversation. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know I don't really talk about a lot of skincare products because I believe that good skin comes from nourishing and hydrating the inside of your body. But I did just turn 45 and I'm always looking for clean, innovative ways to nourish and hydrate my skin from the outside as well. That's why I have really been enjoying Purity Woods age defying dream cream, and it really does enhance the look of your skin and defy aging. Let's talk about why I endorse this brand above others. Purity Wood's mission is to provide people with the cleanest and most effective healthy aging and longevity products available. All their products are USDA certified organic, non GMO, free of anything artificial, free of toxic preservatives and synthetic additives like pesticides, chemical fertilizers, and dyes, parabens, and it is cruelty free and never been tested on animals before. Purity Woods is currently offering 17% off site wide, but we have an additional 10% discount for our listeners for a total savings of 27%. If you go to puritywoods.com/Sarah or enter the code Sarah at checkout, you'll get an additional 10% off your first order. That's Purity Woods, PURITYWOODS.com, and enter the code Sarah for 27% off your first order. I've really been enjoying their skincare and I think you will too, so check it out. If you've been listening to the show for the last few years, you know I'm a huge fan of red light therapy. There are over 10,000 studies now in publication showing the health benefits of red light therapy. And there is a lot of research showing how red light therapy can help to improve skin health. I have been on the fence about trying one of the red light therapy face masks, and I've definitely been waiting to find one that uses the specific frequencies that actually show improvement with skin health. 630 nanometers for red and 850 nanometers for near infrared. And Bond Charge checks off all of those boxes. So I've been trying this mask out for the last month and I absolutely love it. It's super lightweight. It does not make your face sweat and it's very simple to use. All you need is 10 minutes. You can actually use my code Sarah Kleiner, all one word, to save 15% off at Bond Charge. You can use it on any of their products, but I really, really like their red light therapy face mask. And I think it's something that's worth a try if you're looking to naturally improve your skin health. So check it out. Again, use code Sarah Kleiner, all one word, to save 15% over at Bond Charge. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Super excited to have Kourtney here today. She's actually somebody I've been following on Instagram for quite a while. And I really like the way that she looks at women's health, just completely holistically. She's got a great story to tell of her own. And we're just going to see where the conversation goes. So, Courtney, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Sarah. I'm really excited to chat.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your story and how you got into doing the work that you do.
Yeah, so I was in college and I had not had a lot of information about integrative health growing up. I had heard a little bit about things like essential oils and, eating gluten-free, but that's basically where it ended. So I had an interest in being healthy, but I didn't have the tools. So when I started having health issues, I went to the doctors. I found that they were really heavy on the medication route, and I
Mhm.
already avoided using the birth control pill in high school when I had really painful cycles. I was told you can go on this, and at that age, even hearing about what it did, um, I wasn't really on board. I had some concerns. I had heard about a few family members who had used hormonal birth control, and they at least noticed a potential correlation in challenges later on down the road. And so I knew I wanted to be a mother one day. Um, and ovulation was already a challenge for me. So I wasn't wanting to interfere. And so that was a few years prior. So when my health issues really started to reach a peak, I wasn't on any medication. The only thing is that for chronic migraines, I would use medication, but ultimately to paint a picture that's more condensed, autoimmunity, Hashimoto's, PCOS, a chronic Epstein-Barr mononucleosis, and I had a ton of inflammation, very low energy. Cortisol was really high at night and very low in the mornings, so I wouldn't feel good until about 1 a.m., which sounds
Mhm.
crazy, but that was my experience, and I would stay up a lot at night. In the day, it was just I was in a fog. I was in a fog, and I would have a lot of caffeine, a lot of sugar, and that's what I had to use to feel somewhat normal. But at that point, I was also very, very much like a chronic people pleaser, like really presenting as head in the clouds to a lot of people. I look back and I totally see in a lot of ways how it came across, and I was just not in a place where I had a lot of strength, I would say. So what I was experiencing on a health level made a lot of sense. There was a lot of misalignment, not a lot of connection. When you think about the HPA axis, that is a pathway that needs connection and proper communication, and that was not expressed in any area of my life. So um yeah, that's what was going on. That's a little bit of my health story. I can talk about, how I overcame that, but I want to stop there to see if you want to share anything.
No, I mean, I feel like that's so many young women these days, especially in high school, teens, 20s, and most of them do just say, I'm going to go on birth control, which is where I think a lot of other issues start because then we run into nutrient issues. And yeah, so I think a lot of people listening in some way can definitely relate to this. And you think that you said migraines, I'm pretty sure
Mhm.
that those were tied back to hormonal dysregulation, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was hormonally connected. So anytime that estrogen would drop, I would for sure have a migraine, but I also found myself at a point of having migraines nearly every day because of chronic tension. And a lot of that links back to like um more so like postural issues, hypermobility, lip and tongue tie, had issues as a baby. I was always hungry, quote unquote, as a baby, but obviously I wasn't able to get enough milk. So I had to move to formula because there was not a lot of information about, hey, if your baby, if their latch is off, for example, maybe this means that they're not able to get enough milk. And so maybe they're like nursing all the time. I, I look back and I see how um, the the issues that I have are so commonly found with the women who work in my practice. I'm sure that the women who work with you and come to you are also maybe able to relate to that, like a lot of breathing issues, allergies, like
Mhm.
head and neck pain, like clenching the jaw,
Oh, yeah.
hypothyroidism. It's kind of like most of my issues were in this upper body region.
Mhm.
And I still have to be mindful of those things. Like I have to be very intentional to, gua sha, lymphatic drainage, mouth tape at night. Of course, I can go a few days without heavy maintenance and I'm okay at this point because I have a lot
Mhm.
more resilience. But yeah, all of those issues, like especially the migraines,
Mhm.
once that starts to be triggered, and you're kind of in a cycle, it's just really hard to get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a really good friend and she would get a migraine and that was it. Like she would have to basically be in her room for the
Mm.
entire day. Like it was I had never seen anything like it. Like she would get a migraine and she would start slurring her speech and she'd have to just like literally be in a dark room for a day. It was
Mm,
horrible. Yeah.
that's so
So,
awful. Yeah. The
yeah.
neurological impact, a lot of people aren't aware that after you have a migraine, there is a state that your body enters into. I believe it's called post drone. Does that sound right to you? Are you familiar?
Mm-mm,
It's
mm-mm.
it's like a recovery stage, and your body is basically still experiencing the migraine, and so you'll notice like more confusion, maybe like mix up with your memory, overall weakness, increased hunger. It's like your brain just has to recover. I'll oftentimes find that with clients who have migraines, they almost need to have like more glucose, more carbohydrates because they also have like lower blood sugar levels after having migraines, and that's interesting to me. I think that it has a connection with the brain trying to recover from a migraine attack. And of course, like our brain runs on glucose. So I think there's an interesting connection there. I'd have to look into it more, but yeah, migraines are terrible. I think there's an emotional component. I believe that they're more likely to happen if you're out of touch with your body. Um, because our bodies are going to speak to us before we get a migraine. So oftentimes like mood changes, increased urination, issues with sleep, like waking up in the night, and then overall like even like a light pressure can kind of be an indication that like okay, a migraine could be coming. And so there's a lot of things that you can do to prevent an actual migraine attack, but you have to know when it's coming on in order to prevent that attack phase. So whether that's like a massage, if you're not able to get a massage, even like an at home like what you can buy off of Amazon, like for whatever reason I can't like come up with the words right now, but like whatever would help like work out the tension. um Acupuncture can be helpful, or like acupressure if you're not able to like get in for an appointment, especially if you're like a mom or you work and you're really busy, or if you're both like you and I are. But yeah, migraines are awful. There's a lot of chronic pain that you can experience, but that's the one thing that I think can be really challenging to manage, even with medication. Medication won't always work, and it's going to impact your mind and your memory and your mood and your emotions, and that can also be really hard on relationships. So that's a whole thing. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. What role do you think minerals and hydration play with the migraines as well?
huge. I think that a lack of magnesium is a big driver, but also you can't just give a person a ton of magnesium if they're low in magnesium because their other
Right.
minerals are low too. And so it's really a process of having to analyze what the response is, what kind of a balance they need of
Mhm.
electrolytes,
Sodium,
like a
potassium.
person. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And also like the trace minerals that are involved.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it honestly, especially the B vitamins, especially when it
Mhm.
comes to the body being able to actually use magnesium, like vitamin B6, super important. So yeah, really, really important thing for people to be
Yeah.
aware of. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's people think that we can just like, oh, I'm low on magnesium. I can just like add this back in, but the body just doesn't work like that. I'm sure you see that in how you operate with people. Like maybe they'll
Yeah.
kind of get some of their own labs back or tests back. Like, well, I'm just going to add that in. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
we have to
Yeah.
understand why the body is low on that in the first place, because if we just add it back in, it could be a band-aid or it could do something else
Yeah.
in the body that we don't want it to
Mm,
do. That's why I'm just so like cautious with HRT and
mm,
women, because I've seen it go I'm not against HRT in any way. But I have just had so many women come to me with like horror stories of trying it and then having all these horrible
mm,
side effects. Like, well, we didn't get to the root cause of like
mm,
why you're so low in this particular hormone. And we didn't fix that. So just adding it back in, yeah, your body's going to freak out because it made it low for a
mhm.
reason. Like there's an
Yes.
adaptation that was made for a reason. Your body's always trying to bring you to homeostasis in some way, but um, yeah, I think that gets lost a lot in the conversation too.
I totally agree. So, hormone replacement therapy. Do you typically see women using bioidentical hormone replacement or okay,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really talk about this a lot because it's kind of random and it's not information that's really going to help a lot of people. So, um there's really not a need for me to talk about it a lot, but it's interesting because it really reinforces your point of like the body is making it low for a reason. When I was in high school, I went to it was like this anti-aging neurologist that my mom and dad were going to. And they were like, "Okay, we're loving this. You should try this too." Like me and my sister. And so like I got a thyroid test, I got all this testing, and they were like, "You're low in testosterone and you're low in progesterone." They probably didn't even
Oh,
test during the right part of my cycle. They literally gave a child testosterone. I was a child, I was 16.
oh.
Literally insane. Like
Do
your
they test your
body,
cortisol? Like, I
no.
mean,
No. Yeah. They didn't look at cortisol, only my thyroid, and they gave me Armour thyroid, testosterone, progesterone. And I don't think they gave me estrogen cream. But my main thing is like I was concerned because I knew that if I have testosterone, this is going to impact like my features. I don't know how I knew this. I think I was just like nerdy even then. And so I would like look into all this stuff and I was like, okay, so like if I have high amounts of testosterone, like this can also impact like the development of breast tissue. And like, I'm literally not even like close to being through with puberty. I was like really concerned and I was talking to them
yeah.
actually. Like, I was asking questions and they were like, well, a little bit of this is going to convert into estrogen, so you'll be fine. And I would kind of be hot and cold with using these things because like I was young and like I trusted them and my parents, but I was mostly just like looking at the kind of practice this was. Like this is anti-aging, all about appearances, using hormones to just be as like lean and strong as possible. But I knew that I was young and yeah, ultimately like I ended up stopping everything and that's when I honestly like really reached that place of having a lot of challenges with the PCOS. I
Mm,
absolutely think that those hormones played a role. High
mm,
androgens, and for anyone
mhm,
listening with androgens, they are hormones more commonly correlated with biological men. And so whenever you introduce extra amounts of testosterone, of course, that is going to kind of go along with the pathology for PCOS. Um, and also like Armour thyroid. Now there's a little bit of information that shows that that can actually contribute to like an autoimmune effect, like anything that's glandular. And it's not more like processed down to like I mean, I don't like off the top of my head, like I'm not able to describe it. Like that's really high level or yeah, like what I mentioned is really high level. It's not like the nitty gritty. But anyway, all of that to basically say, like, anytime you replace hormones, you have to be so careful because that's going to cause other things to happen. And you have to ask, why is this low? Like, what is the body saying? Our bodies are so wise. So, yeah, just like a
yeah.
real life example.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing I see with women is like, first of all, they get low progesterone. And that's usually the first one that starts becoming low. And I think, a little bit of progesterone at the right age is
Yeah,
not harmful. Honestly, I think it can
totally.
help sleep and mood and like can almost kind of be like a Valium, like whoosh, but if you are not working on why your progesterone is low, let's say that your cortisol is just all over the place because we know like pregnenolone gets funneled to the cortisol pathway or it gets funneled to our sex steroid hormone pathway. And if
Mm-hmm.
we're just in this perceived state of stress and like threat all the time, and then, the impact of blue light, if we've got blue
Mm-hmm.
light, especially after sunset, like that's again going to kick off that pathway. And so that alone, the perceived stress, trauma, and then like the light enough
Mm-hmm.
can create low progesterone. It can create a cortisol problem that's creating low progesterone. I mean, of course, there's micro macronutrients involved as well. But I'm like, if you just start taking progesterone and you're not looking at your cortisol, if you're not looking at your master hormones,
Mm-hmm.
then sometimes I see it creating even more of a cortisol problem, and I'm like, it just isn't. We think we're so smart, like that we just are low on something. So we're just going to take it. And again, I've seen progesterone be tremendously helpful for women, but I've also seen it go the opposite way if we're not working on
Mm-hmm.
foundation. So do you see similar to that in your practice?
Yeah, I do. And the pathways and the overall metabolic state is really important to analyze too. So
Yes.
if your body is metabolizing quickly, like running through minerals quickly, processing cortisol quickly. So one of the main labs we run, which I think a lot of people actually know about this by now, but it's called the Dutch test, which is a dried urine comprehensive analysis of hormones. Yes, it's pricey, but like for the amount of what it shows you, it's honestly a very, very good investment into your health. So on the Dutch test, you're able to see where you are with your metabolism, with cortisol, with estrogen. So if you are if you are metabolizing quickly, um, this also means that you're running through nutrients really quickly. Usually we see like
Yeah.
hypoglycemia with this. Your body is just like outpouring and outpouring and outpouring. And so this is a person that needs a plan that is foundational, but it's also tailored towards what they can handle. So a person like this, if you put them in the sauna every day and they're just sweating without replenishing, that's going to push them too much. Would you
Mhm.
agree?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Because this is the same kind of person also who is like, more is better. Cold plunging every day is better. Sauna every day is better because they've just had like that metabolic state that their body is in. Also, their mind is kind of like fast, fast. We got to do this. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I come across this woman often and she's just like super repleted. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, we got to just and that's what I
Mhm.
usually see, low leptin, because I look
Mm,
at leptin for people,
yeah.
and that's my classic low leptin person,
Yeah.
is in this kind of a state. And you
Mm,
could be overweight in this state as well. You don't have to be underweight. I also see overweight people with like 30, 40 pounds to lose that are in this kind of low leptin fast
mm.
state, you know?
I mean, I think that was me after I had my daughter. I put on more
Mm,
weight than I anticipated, but it was also hard to tell because I was increasing muscle mass at the same
mm,
time. And in terms of like the fat distribution, it wasn't a concern until I actually had her and I saw that I had a lot of abdominal fat that I gained. So that was a
yeah.
huge shocker. Um, and like especially as a person who like historically was like on the underweight side and always kind of concerned about not being able to like wear a pair of jeans, without kind of being like are these actually fitting my body? Like I could go into it, not necessary, but um I think that is almost like it's almost like a weird like identity shift. Like, whoa, like I need to be present and understand like what my body is experiencing. I am not in the past. I'm here and now, and I have this new health risk that I actually need to face head on, and understanding like what your body is telling you is really important. So what I was experiencing was like extreme hunger, like a
Mhm.
crazy desire to just like stay up all night, basically wanting to sleep in the day. Of course I didn't do that. Like as a working
Right.
mom, like I knew that I had to like keep myself on track, but like this apathy I felt was so deep, and it was also like concerning given the responsibilities that I knew I had to maintain. So
Yeah.
um I ran labs. I was able to see where things were off. I had a little bit more like increased autoimmunity after pregnancy. Now it's under
Mm.
control. Like everything is in a great place now. But would you say that like a pregnancy can be a big trigger, and why do you think that is? Like from what you've observed, like I'm really curious for your take there.
Today's show is brought to you by Upgraded Formulas. They have my absolute favorite magnesium. You can get the best and only clinically studied stabilized nano magnesium supplement on the market from Upgraded Formulas using my code YOGI for 10% off. Did you know that magnesium is actually required for over 800 enzymatic reactions in the body? This clinically studied magnesium has proven to improve sleep quality and energy by over 60%, specifically improving light sleep measurement by 90%, REM sleep by 150%, and deep sleep by 250%. That means more energy, better mood, and deeper sleep. Who doesn't want that? What makes this the best on the market? This specific magnesium is nano magnesium, which means it is easier for your body to absorb and use. In fact, it is absorbed up to 99.99%, which means you'll feel the results instantaneously. A lot of people are quick to talk about the benefits of sunlight, but what gets often missed in the conversation is the benefit of darkness and the importance of protecting yourself from blue and green light after sunset. That is why I choose Viva Rays as my go-to source for protecting my circadian rhythms. You can use the code YOGI to save 15% off at Viva Rays. Now, you may have seen some of these studies popping up. I call them fear mongering about blue blockers not being effective. And that is a partial truth because when you use blue blockers that are clear or that have not been tested with a spectrometer to actually block what they say they do, they will not protect your circadian rhythms. And they are not catching those key wavelengths that you need to be blocking in order for your body to be able to repair, for you to make melatonin, which is a master antioxidant. And artificial light at night has been in the scientific literature extensively linked to a host of hormonal cancers, obesity, diabetes, and all sorts of metabolic issues. That again is why I choose Viva Rays as my go-to source for protecting my circadian rhythms to allow my body to get adequate darkness at night. You can use the code YOGI to save 15% over at Viva Rays, and you can actually trust that they block the frequencies of light that they say they do. Thanks to Viva Rays for sponsoring today's podcast. Oh my gosh, pregnancy does so much. I mean, number one, it just like takes all your minerals, because it's going to the baby. So you're looking at crucial micronutrients, your trace minerals, your electrolytes, all of that. Like those can be low. And if you're not careful there, that's why I think so many women, they get the dental issues after
Mm,
pregnancy because all your minerals are going to baby. And we know when minerals go off, like so many functions in the body are not going to work appropriately. So I think the minerals are huge. And then also pregnancy and breastfeeding both are a state of leptin resistance out of survival.
mhm,
We have to be a little bit leptin resistant because we are making a human. And then they're born and we're providing them with nutrition. So the body goes into this kind of like protective mode of I'm going to protect my, I stored a lot of body fat too. I still have my picture from 6 weeks
mhm.
postpartum. Like there's the women online that post they're like, oh, I'm 6 weeks postpartum and they look so tiny. And I'm like, no, like 40, 50 pounds, like extra because I wasn't like restricting myself during
Yeah,
pregnancy,
same.
I'm one of
Yeah,
these women that I had been pregnant 16 years ago and I gained a ton of weight. And this time I was very more mindful with what I was eating, but I still gained a good amount of weight. Um,
yeah,
I wasn't going to stress about it. I was so happy to be
yeah,
pregnant. Um, but yeah, I was
yeah.
definitely
That's
leptin
how it was.
resistant. And I
Yeah.
have women that are in my community too. I get a lot of women in their 40s who I think I have like probably 10 women in their 40s right now in my community that are pregnant, and then another five or six that are
Gosh,
breastfeeding
I
and they're
have
in their
chills.
40s.
It's amazing. It's so
they,
amazing.
they
Yeah.
come to me. They're like, okay, you did this in your 40s, so now we're here.
Yes.
Which is so it's
Gosh.
fun, but it's also like, okay, now everyone's like leptin resistant. I had a woman
The
on
crew,
my
leptin
it's
resistance.
a serious crew. Like I had a woman on my call on Wednesday. I did a group call and she was just in tears because she's
Oh.
a nurse and her daughter is like 20 months old and she's like, I just can't lose any weight and I'm still working at the hospital 3 days a week and I'm still breastfeeding and I wanted to do the breastfeeding journey right. And I just was hearing a lot of stress and I was just like,
Bless her. Yeah.
your body is like protecting you.
Yeah.
It's not a priority for you to lose weight right now. Plus you're just having had to go to the emergency
Mhm.
room with son yesterday and like be in a hospital environment for I don't know, we got there at like 2:30. We didn't leave till 6:30. But
Mhm.
just the few hours in the hospital, I'm like, God, this is such a stressful environment. I can't imagine this being like my job. So
Yeah.
I have to like with women in pregnancy and postpartum, I almost have to like undo all of the messaging out there that you're supposed to bounce back and you're supposed to do this because your body does
Mhm.
go through so much. And I do see people having like a little bit of autoimmunity that gets
Mhm.
gut issues. And it's
Yeah.
really harder if someone is breastfeeding to say, do this protocol, do that protocol. And it's hard to
Yeah.
say you got to get sleep at night because
Yeah.
so
Like,
it's tricky.
raise your
It's
hand,
tricky.
raise your hand if you have ever slept with a baby literally attached to you for hours at a time. Hi.
That was like survival. I like,
Yes.
and I never, with my daughter, it was so different. Like she was
Yeah.
so easy. Like
Yeah.
she would go to bed, sleep through the night, even when she was breastfeeding. I mean, she was
Yeah.
amazing. My son
Yeah.
was like attached to
Challenging.
me in the bed. Like, yeah, it was
Oh my
totally different.
gosh. It's so
So,
hard. And
yeah.
especially if sleep is a little lighter, like all babies are different
Yeah.
and then they like go through different stages, especially if they're like, their other hand is like you're like, "Oh my gosh, let me sleep." Like
Yeah.
it's precious and it's
Yeah.
very glamorized and like of course I actually like appreciate that in a way because I think it's beautiful. I think it's intimate. I think it's connection. In one way, like that is that is not in any way the only way that you could or should be connecting with your kids. Not that I
Right.
want to be like a spokesperson on that. Like I'm not over here to be like, here's what you should know. I'm just saying like that's beautiful, but it's also very much a sacrifice. It's very challenging. And everyone feels different about it, especially if they get
Hmm.
like really touched out, like especially if maybe they don't have like a bed that's really big, and that can be like an issue like with the partner, with the spouse. That's a whole thing and that can be really stressful. And also like weaning is hard because they're going to cry, and if life is a lot at that point it can just be really hard to make that decision. And yeah, I mean it's a whole thing. I see that affect women a lot. um and everything you just mentioned is like pure gold in terms of that awareness of like your body is protecting itself and your body is giving a lot.
Hmm.
I really like running labs after pregnancy. I know that might not be the most traditional route, but I think that's a very linear view. And the abstract approach is to analyze whenever it's not going to be a huge financial burden on someone. I know that labs are really expensive. I'm very mindful of that. Anytime I can lower costs, I do. With postpartum women, with the health of the gut,
Hmm.
um, hormonal
That makes
changes are going to it's huge, right? Like so
yeah.
common to see
Oh,
those
yeah.
gut issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and also like what I did for myself, and this helped me learn so much, is I put myself in a little bit of a gut protocol after I had Eliza, my daughter, and I would research like molecular weight of the compounds I wanted to take. Like, will this pass through breast milk?
Hmm.
If it will, how much of it will? And, what are the effects? What could this do? Like looking at the research and just making the best choices. Um, because I think that there's a risk and a benefit to everything, and you just have to use that higher level knowledge to, move forward in the best way. And I think that nutrition, I mean, always, always, always is a foundation. Like, you should be doing that first. I am so tired. I fear this will continue to happen, but I'm so tired of like oh, your progesterone's low, here's Vitex. Oh, you have high estrogen, here's Dem. Like, oh my
Yes.
gosh, this is so basic and not smart. Yeah.
No. Maybe we could talk about why that's not smart because that comes up in my group a
Yeah.
lot. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like,
Yeah. For real.
from your perspective, why would
Yeah.
somebody just not want to just start taking that if something is low or quote unquote high?
So it's my mind always
Also,
thinks of
like,
these
do
like
you
extreme
actually know?
examples. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think it's great to test, but also like you have to be able to cross-reference tests. And if you're working with a provider and you have even a smidge of a question of like, do they really know what they're talking about?
Mhm.
Probably not. Probably not. Just gonna level with you. Probably not. I think that a lot of people who have the capacity to retain information and accomplish, all the schooling and like gain the credentials, they might not be abstract problem solvers.
Mhm.
That's so important to be aware of and to um, allow yourself to question
Mhm.
everything. That's like one of my mottos, because why is this a threat that I'm questioning it if this is a quality or full of integrity based thing that I am
Right.
questioning? Like, is it a threat? Yeah, so important to remember.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to this very like cookie cutter approach, so I don't think all providers are doing this on purpose. I don't think they're trying to be difficult. I don't think that they're trying to be unhelpful. I think that their minds and their capacities not quite there when it comes to being able to conceptualize the complexities of the body and all of these inner workings. There are literally like highways and pathways, and like it's kind of like a matrix in your health. Like, it's so
Mhm.
complex. And if you are really good at helping people in their health, you're going to have a mind that can understand and hold so much abstract information about a person's health, where you use that information and then you process it down and you say, you know, this is the next best step. And then you can
Mhm.
explain why you're recommending that on like a micro level and a macro level. I want to be a little bit more specific and give an actual example. So in the case of low progesterone, a Vitex is usually recommended. That's like a classic recommendation. But the reason that might not be the best approach is because blood sugar levels are so important for ovulatory support. Also, the corpus luteum, the actual endocrine structure that is there temporarily within that ovulatory period, requires a lot of nutrients in order for like proper formation and for adequate levels of progesterone. So, like you mentioned earlier, like micronutrients and um, well, micronutrient my micronutrients are vitamins and minerals, also
Yep.
like macronutrients as well, but
Mhm.
macronutrients carry micronutrients
Right.
the
Right.
majority of the time. And so that's kind of a given. But your body requires like adequate potassium, magnesium, all the B vitamins,
Mhm.
zinc, and then other trace minerals that come in very small forms. Usually you can get this through food. Um, but you should, of course, work with a provider that has this knowledge, which most do not. That's why I really like combining that naturopathic physician and nutritional practitioner approach. But what I did in this case with the practice, because I knew I couldn't just bring people on with their own outlooks and approaches and education, is I have a very strong hand of control over what we do and what's recommended. So you will not see recommendations that are one dimensional. We're going to be looking at the full picture, running labs at the start, recommending those lifestyle factors like light, which you talk about all the time, light, sleep, like grounding your body, negative ions, like all of these like very basic things have to be in place. But no, you cannot take a person who is like pent up in an apartment where they never get outside. All they do is watch Netflix and have wine and order Taco Bell, and you give them Vitex and they're just going to have like beautiful progesterone levels. That is
No.
a very unloving and harmful thing to do to someone. You have to
Yeah.
get real with people and help them unravel um the
Why is this happening
construct
in the first
around.
place?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough conversation to have, because I'll
No.
get I'm sure you get these too, like the classic woman who's just like we were talking about, she just like in this fast metabolic state. And and I know that there's a trauma element involved, like 100% positive there's a trauma element
Yeah.
happening. And it's just like, well, what if I eat yams? What if I do this? What if I take vitamin C? What if I do this? What if I do that?
Mhm.
Like, um, that can help, but this is not going to get you to the root cause. If you're a
Yeah.
woman in your early 30s and you have low progesterone, low testosterone, low DHEA, that's telling me that the cortisol is basically running the show here. And
Yeah.
your lifestyle is largely attributing to that. And then your perceived state of stress. So I always say perceived state of stress because that can be
Mhm.
trauma, that can be things going on in your life. But it's all the perception and the state of your nervous system. Because I have had other
Mhm.
clients that have done a lot of regulation with nervous system, and I see them go through hard, difficult things, and their hormones don't tank because they've
Mm.
built this resiliency of the nervous system. We support their minerals, we
Mhm.
support holistically when they're going through really difficult times, but they don't have the same kind of crash as somebody who hasn't
Mm.
built that resiliency. And so I think, people in the trauma and
Mm.
stress, people think that we're never are supposed to have anything bad happen to us,
Mm.
because everything that is going to happen that's negative is going to mess up your body. And that's not
Mm.
necessarily, I mean, that's not how we were built, that's
Yeah.
not how life is either. Like nobody gets out without having some hard stuff that they have to deal with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. Um, Eustress versus um distress, right? Like healthy stress, the kind that actually brings forth a lot of goodness and
Mhm.
a lot of what, like, honestly, we're here for. It's to move through things that are incredibly challenging, but um continue to bring forth beauty and love out of the contrast that we experience. And hopefully this is my goal, and this is where I feel I am in some ways. I want to be careful to say like I'm here, because I feel like I've just now entered a place of even being aware that I'm here. So that lets me know that I'm just at the beginning. But like putting your own, which this is extremely non-literal. This is very like allegorical. So I want to preface this, but it's kind of like putting your own hand to the fire, like putting your own body, your own mind into things that are very challenging. One example, which like we don't have to get into it, but like cold plunging. I've cold plunged and most of the benefits are mental. So for a person that was very apprehensive towards anything challenging because of experiencing a lot of trauma and a lot of shock, um, that was one of the most helpful things for like helping me understand my own strength. And
Mhm.
that was also really great prep for like an unmedicated birth, which is like a whole other conversation. We don't have to get into it, but like understanding how strong you are and how you can actually make yourself do hard things. You can't always do hard things, but if you can move closer to that, I think that
Yeah,
that is when you really start to like kind of become the butterfly. Honestly, like it's very hard, but yeah, that's life. I mean, yeah.
it
Um
is. Yeah, I mean, I think
yeah.
developing that resiliency is everything. And people are like, with my experience with cold plunging, I used cold plunging to help me get pregnant. And everyone's like,
Yeah.
"Shh, like that's completely insane. Like it's going to
Mm.
ruin your
To
hormones." I'm like, no, you can actually do it in a way that is
Mm,
supportive of your hormones, if you know how to time it and you're not in there for 20 minutes, I'm talking like 3 minutes, three
yeah,
times a week, not the
I
week
agree.
before your cycle. Like you're timing it correctly. And you're also like your attitude about it is you're not freaked out about it and like on
Yeah,
because
yeah.
mitochondrial stress will degrade function up to
Mm,
30%. So like, if you're worried and freaked out about it, then probably don't do it. But for me, it
mm,
helped to improve my mitochondrial health and then also build some resilience back for me when I had gone through pregnancy
mm,
loss and failed IVF and all of that. Like the cold therapy was like very, very
mm.
therapeutic for me in reestablishing, agency over my health and my body
Yeah,
and my fertility. It was pretty miraculous. So it gets a
that's
bad
amazing.
rap, I think, in the alternative
Mm,
space. Talk about women's health.
yeah,
Because we've
I
got that
agree with
woman who
you.
like, the fast metabolizer who's like 5 cold
Yeah.
plunges 5 days a week, 15 minutes at a time,
Well, because like everything is intense for her.
Right.
Like it I I feel like for most women in that place, like it links back to this like hyper excellence, like always pushing yourself. How can I help? How can I make you happy? And there's not a connection with how you actually feel. And I've heard stories of people who like they kind of like are in a place of like going in and out of, I would say, like lucidity, kind of like near death experience like things, and they have which are very, very cool to me. But I mean, I'll keep most of that to myself. I think it's amazing. But anyway, one example that comes to mind is a woman who had this moment where like her body was talking to her and it was like, you are so bad to me, like you treat me so poorly. And it was like this other consciousness in a way, like communicating to, her in life presently, who wasn't in tune with her body's needs. And that was so interesting to me. And that really it caused me to become introspective towards like, am I honoring this the way that I would honor like a beautiful tree? Like am I respecting my body and its needs as I would anything else in nature and creation? Um with cold plunging, you mentioned that it helped you and your journey. So I cold plunged for a few months leading up to conception, and I also had parosmia at the time after having the thing that was going on in 2020. I had it near the end of 2021.
Mm.
And it caused a lot of blood sugar issues because like I would eat meat, it would taste horrible. And what I did is I of course researched. I realized I was like low on some things, like antioxidants needed support. But cold plunging actually brought my smell and taste back to a normal place. And I think it's because
Oh,
of the cranial nerves rule over all motor function and any kind of input that you can intake and sense. So that's quite literally like the hard drive in a lot of ways of the way that your body moves and functions in the world. So like smell and taste. Smell is olfactory and taste. Um Gosh, I mean, off the top of my head, I would have to like write them all out basically. But anyway, yeah, huge to understand the difference between like what we hear. We hear one thing, okay, the womb needs to be warm, but also with cold plunging, your body heats up
heats up.
after you
Yeah.
cold plunge. And so it
Yeah.
actually helps with regulation of temperature. And so
Yes.
on a long-term kind of basis, your body's actually going to be even better at retaining that heat in that area
Yeah.
of your body, I think.
Yeah, I agree. As long as you're not like trying to do like overdo it. I find
Yeah,
for women, I've changed my mind on this a few times, but I just don't think women need to go colder than like 50 degrees. I don't
yeah,
really see a need for it to be
I agree.
colder than that. I mean, maybe if you want to play in the 40s, cool, but like when I see women going into like 30,
Yeah,
Fahrenheit, like
no,
32 degrees Fahrenheit, I'm like,
way too cold.
no,
Yeah,
no, no
I
need for that. Like,
agree.
yeah.
I agree. And also, like, you should be mindful of your hands and feet. Like, if you have any kind of neuropathy or anything,
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Stick
or
'em out.
Raynaud's, just like be mindful of that because you might not be able to handle it.
Exactly.
And mostly what I try to do is really like get my neck and
Yep.
like
Yep. Collarbone, back of the neck.
chest region. Yeah. But I love it with my whole body. I feel like it helps me
Yeah.
like know where my body is in space. Like it's very, very helpful for
Yes.
just being like, okay, I'm here, like all the way down to my toes. But yeah, I usually do like 50, 55.
Perfect.
And
Yeah.
always after the sauna.
Yeah, I do
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Same. I go
Yeah.
right from sauna into like mine's at 50 right now, and I'm like,
Yeah.
doesn't get any colder than
Yeah.
that. Totally
Yeah.
fine. It feels good. So,
Yeah. I agree. And like also like the bro wellness culture has kind of like
uh,
eh, like
right.
I just got a pang of anxiety when I said that. They were like, doesn't count unless your feet are in. It's like you
I
stop.
know.
Stop.
I know. I
Stop. Like it's
know.
not like honestly, it's
It
like a
doesn't have
competitive
to be
mindset.
all
Like
or nothing.
I know.
Yeah. And that trickles to women too. It trickles to the women. And I'm like,
Yes, exactly. They're like, "Oh, like, that sounds really smart." And it's like this classic, like, not trusting wisdom and intuition, but instead, like, leaning into the, like, very, like, logic heavy. But honestly, like, that's not even logical. It just is kind of, like, assumed to be logical because of a person who says it, who
right.
might have endorsement of some sort. So, that
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Online is completely wild. This,
It's
it
wild.
really is.
It is.
Yeah. It's awesome because we get to use it to connect with people. And I've connected, and I'm sure you have too, with like
Yeah.
so many amazing people all over the world. And
Yeah.
you've got a woman who is like 47 right now who's pregnant and about to give birth in my group. And she had been trying for years. And it's just like so cool, and I get
Mm,
emails of babies, and then I'll get women who are like perimenopausal and menopausal, and they're like, I'm not having hot flashes anymore. I'm not having severe
gosh.
anxiety. I'm sleeping through the night. Like, this is amazing. And so, like,
Yeah.
when I get down on like the online space and like how icky it can really be, I try to just like go and look at some of those
Mm,
emails and just like, okay, it's going to be all right. But it's
yeah. Oh my
a lot.
gosh. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I love how you're helping people and also how you're willing to be an example for other people. I think it takes a strong person to be in the online space and to put their stuff out there. I think it takes a really strong person and there has to be a heart motivation to really help people, which is exactly what you're doing. I mean, that's my mission. And um reminding yourself of like, yeah, like I'm gonna have to like trudge through the forest of conflict and overwhelm, but like I have my eyes on something and my eyes are like directly on those that I have overwhelming empathy towards and who are desperately looking for something.
Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, you do a beautiful job with that too. And you're brave enough to like be on TikTok, which I will not do. Like,
Wild, wild, wild west out there.
yeah, it's complete. I do YouTube and Instagram and I have a podcast, and like I can't like
Yeah.
that's where I can't do TikTok. I just
Okay.
don't have the nerves for it.
Yeah, but also like you know where to find the people that need to connect with you. And I feel like that
Yeah.
wisdom and intuition is there, and resistance
Yeah.
oftentimes can be wisdom. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true too. It's true.
Yeah.
Speaking of social media, you've
Yeah.
had like a number of reels that have kind of gone like viral lately. Um, which
Am I, do I
talk
actually
about
want this?
nervous system like
Yeah, nervous
overload.
system. Oh my gosh. It's like one person comment one person commented and it was hilarious. They were like, Instagram for real. You cannot continue to push this one. Like I see this every day. And I'm like, I know. Like I don't know why this keeps on getting pushed out. I am not so funny. Like I loved the honesty. I love
Yeah.
dry humor. Yeah, so one huge one, it got like 3.1 or something. Like it's still getting views and comments. But it's been pretty positive too. Like
Yeah.
I didn't mess with any of the comments. Like I let them stay up because nothing was like vulgar or like
Yeah.
horribly like offensive. So I'm like, yeah, you guys can talk, it's fine. And like I'll respond occasionally, but it was about my theory. It was it was a trend that was honestly kind of fun because it was funny. It was like you said normal girls were boring, but you were gone at the moment I mentioned that there's like a connection with like chronic health conditions like PCOS and childhood trauma.
Mm.
Obviously like a reference to a Taylor Swift song. And it's crazy because a lot of people, I think when they hear about how like extra cortisol being released will lead to this and it leads to that, they're like, okay, that makes sense. Like all those nights where I heard my parents yelling or I literally like breathed the wrong way. And I had like the rug ripped from, out from under me when my brain was developing. And I was just trying to like not feel like an awkward middle schooler or high schooler. Like I was just trying. And like, not only was there not a break, but I was met with constant conflict and resistance, even like humiliation. Maybe, maybe there were like health issues or other insecurities. And like those who have experienced a lot of adversity, of course, the body has responded to that and it's gone into a mode of a pathology, but also protection. And those can kind of look the same at times when you really start to unravel. It's kind of like this like helix of just like interwoven. The body is trying to resist and decompress, but it's also like fighting. And yeah.
Yeah, I think it's huge. Honestly, I think it's huge. Like so many women are, and there's like four different types of PCOS. So I don't think it's just like the one. I mean, I just feel like there's such a link um
Mm,
between autoimmune PCOS, all of these things, and some element of unresolved trauma. Like the body
yeah.
is always trying to protect you. And just helping people to kind of unravel that sometimes can be the first step in getting them out of those chronic health conditions. I think the
Mm,
mind is so powerful.
yeah. And like lab testing really is helpful for seeing like, okay, is your glucose so high and is your estrogen really high to a point where it's now causing issues with high levels of testosterone, that kind of
Mm.
thing. Like, yes, we need to start with the basics, but a lot of people are like, okay, but I have this diagnosis and I have these issues and I'm currently taking this and that and that. And it's really helpful to honestly do both at the same time. Like run the labs, but also immediately implement the most important things like light and
Hmm.
proper sleep. Like, you know, you talk about it, I talk about it, but I think that if you're really serious, and of course, if it's not a huge financial burden,
Yeah.
moving into both realms at the same time, given that you're not working with a provider that's just recommending like a cookie cutter approach, I think that can be really wise for a lot of people, like choosing both at the same time.
Yeah. And the role that nutrition plays too. I'm sure that you do some counseling
Oh,
there. Yeah.
like 90% of the implementations are highly strategic nutrition
Yeah.
recommendations. So, for example, like we're not going to tell you to take like a capsule with, things that can be eaten as foods. We're going to tell you here's what you can eat and how you can eat it and when you can eat it and what it's going to do. So powerful. Like even like broccoli sprouts and like lion's mane mushroom. You shouldn't be taking those in capsule form or in tincture form if you can avoid it. Eat it. And like a little bit of a disclaimer there, like lion's mane isn't always like easy to access in the grocery store. Like I live in Dallas and Whole Foods, like you're always going to be able to find that here. Like if you live in like North Dakota, like most most likely not going to be able to find lion's mane. And so there is a time and a place where like just because of access, you will have to take a food through capsule form or in
Mhm.
tincture form. But yeah, food is everything. It's information. It's information. You need information to speak to your body and to cause changes to happen and to also just like fuel you with the energy and the essence that you need to have those like proper outcomes happen. The desired outcomes can only happen if the right information is put into the machine, and our bodies are the machine.
Absolutely. Now, do you do just mainly Dutch testing and maybe some like functional gut testing, PI map? Do you do HTMA at all in your practice?
So we have over like 100 different lab tests, not just like
Mhm.
individual labs, but like comprehensive panels. Hair mineral analysis, I prefer alternatives. Now, looking at the research, it really is looking like we can have more information that's more accurate in a different way. And so that's a recent change that we've made. We will run HTMA for educational purposes, but it's not a panel that has utmost validity. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, it's very affordable, it's very easy, and so I wish that it could be like a one size fits all. Not even just that. I mean like an accurate
Yeah.
approach to health, but ultimately the main labs that I really like would be functional thyroid, comprehensive urine hormone analysis, stool testing. We use a few different labs there. We have really, really great lab partners. We mail labs to your home, make recommendations based upon health struggles you're having. Labs are included in the packages that we have. And so it's really affordable. You can pay monthly, you can finance it for like a longer period of time if you need to. We really try to make it easy for people. And also, in terms of knowing what you need to move forward with, we have a wellness assessment that's like just right over $100. It's extremely comprehensive. It should not only be $100, but that's our way of helping people know, what plan of action is best for you. What do we
Yeah.
see as medical providers? What do we see and what can you do? And so if you complete a wellness assessment, that cost actually counts towards a package with us. And a lot of the packages are like an affordable monthly, like 180, 220 a month. It really just depends on like what you're choosing
The
to do with
goals.
us. But
Yeah.
yeah, we, we make recommendations that based upon your health, and we'll never recommend an overwhelming amount. This is about honoring and respecting the patient and helping you have care like you've never had before.
Nice. And do you work? I know you do a lot with the women that are PCOS, like more reproductive age, pre-pregnancy, post-pregnancy. Do you ever work with women kind of in perimenopause, menopause, doing any
Mhm.
bioidentical recommendations, or do you outsource for that kind of work?
Yeah, we work with them in terms of how they'll be, like exactly ordering those compounds if they need them.
Mhm.
That is a process in which we run labs first and we analyze, what are the risks for you and how could this help and what can we do before. So a lot of times, especially if there's a woman who's having like still like a few periods a year, or it's been like half years
Mhm.
since she's had a period, we'll look
Yeah.
at a mapping portion in addition to the classic Dutch test, and we'll see when is your estrogen trying to rise? What can we do to increase this? How can we help the ovarian health? Because your ovaries create estrogen. So, how can we cause you to stay in a place as long as possible of having your own cycle without having to use hormones? And then also, if we ever recommend hormone replacement, like we recommend using it in a way that honors the true length of the cycle. So, estrogen on these days, then progesterone, like mimicking the female
Right.
cycle, because that is going to help your brain, help your body. And it also helps mitigate the risks of having like too much estrogen. Of
Much.
course, estrogen is really important for, like a laundry list of things, but yeah, we see really great outcomes there. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, we help all people, even children, work with men. It's just usually that like a woman is the one who comes through the doors and then she
They
will
bring her
bring her
family.
whole family in. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's helpful because I do get a lot of ladies that are like, I want to do HRT, like I'm so miserable, and they just try to cut and paste it, or they go to their
Hmm.
gynecologist and their gynecologist will again cut and paste it. And they're like, why did I have such a bad reaction? Like, what happened? And I'm like, because you need a practitioner, or they'll go get pellets. Like, I've had so many horror stories with the pellets. I'm like, in nature, that would never, it would never work that way. In nature, it would be, um, more like a topical, right? That it would happen at a certain time of day. There'd be a certain amount, and then other
Mm,
days it wouldn't. And so, like, yeah, the hormone thing is tough, and I feel like I've worked with women
mm,
who get on hormone replacement therapy and they feel like, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? Oh my gosh, I feel
mm,
so, and it's been such a godsend. But then I get the complete opposite.
mm,
Um, and then it's just like, well, yeah, because there's so many different variations to this. It's just not just like, you go to the store and you buy apples and you get apples. Like, this
mm.
is something like, there's just a lot of nuance, and you have to have a
Yeah,
practitioner that looks at the whole picture, of like how you're
yeah,
metabolizing these things. And like, it's a lot.
yeah,
So that's something I'm like, so you got to be really
yeah.
careful. Yeah.
It's literally chemistry. So we are not over
Right.
here trying to offer you something that is not helpful. Like, this is
Right.
literally, this is very, very high level. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the reason we're here. And those of us who are in this field who have a proven track record of helping people get to a really good place, like you and myself, these are minds that work in a way that is able to understand a lot of information and not just make recommendations that are like reading like an answer off a page. Like, we're able to explain and make recommendations that are truly with like a person's biology in mind, is what I would say. Which is really important for people to remember. Like, you can save money trying to do it yourself, but you're typically going to have to spend more through cleanup efforts, and also like energy and time and everything that can be spent. Oftentimes that can be a huge cost. So yeah, very important to have
Definitely.
the right support. Definitely.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel like we've covered so many things. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that I didn't ask you about that's coming to mind?
I think the only thing, okay, so I'm noticing a lot of people in the online space, they're wanting to maybe become like a health coach or help people. And the only
Mhm.
thing I would say there is like, if you come across like an amazing practitioner like Sarah, or if you come across my page, or if you come across another person's page and you really like that information, it's great to learn on your own. I encourage it. You might reach a point of wanting to work through a program or earn a credential. Um, I have a free guide that talks about the wise steps you can take there. And so that's going to be on the link in bio in my account. It's Kale Diagnostics Professional. Look at that first. If you have an interest in now helping other people, now that you've had help or you have a lot of interest in the wellness field, um, not not every program is the same, and not all paths are going to help you be a person who can be um reliable and have validity. And if you don't have the right information to share and you try to speak about something, um the online space, like we talked about earlier, it's the wild wild west, and you want to make sure that you actually know how to properly conceptualize information if you want to be a person who actually talks about this stuff. So that's what I would say, really, just as I watch more and more those who I've helped who have had like miraculous health transformations. Now they're like, okay, I want to help other people. That's amazing, but let's make sure that you actually have like the proper wisdom and guidance. So that's a pretty big passion project of mine now, is like helping other people become practitioners. I have a program. You don't have to do the program. I just want you to know like what choice you need to make in order to not bring a lot of stress into your life unintentionally. So that's like a pretty recent thing, I would say. But other than that, I mean, I love what you're talking about, Sarah, like all your posts. I'm always like, yes, heart, agree. I think it's
Aw.
amazing. And yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been awesome to finally connect with you. And I'll make
You
sure like
too.
all of your links to just your regular page and then your practitioner page are in the show notes if people are watching or listening and they want to go check those out so they can learn more from you if they'd like to, or if people want to work with you as a client, how would they go about doing
Yeah.
that?
So you would go to kalediagnostics.com and then register for a wellness assessment. Um, if you have any questions, we're available through chat. Our responses are pretty fast, so we're available in that way. And then also, if you are needing to have more of like a financial conversation about like making this affordable and making it work for you, we also have help available on our staff for free, which is not a common thing that you can find in the functional medicine space, but we really try to make this as easy as possible for you because we know that it can be expensive, especially when you're already paying for health insurance. So we're here to help, and yeah, reach out anytime if you want care from a very empathy and integrity led perspective, in addition to, of course, being very evidence based and very in touch with the most recent findings in terms of what can really help your health now and long term.
I love it. Well, thanks again for coming on. And I look forward to chatting sometime in the near future.
Yes, thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you so much for listening to the Evolving Wellness Podcast. Just a quick little reminder, this is not medical advice nor meant to be taken as a substitute for working one-on-one with a healthcare practitioner. And if you enjoy the show, please head on over to Apple or Spotify to leave the show up to a 5-star review. If you're over on YouTube, please leave us a like, leave us a comment. I really appreciate you for being here, for listening to the show, and your support means the world to me as I continue to try to pull guests from around the world to bring you informative content to empower you to make decisions about your own health. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.